Locati here. Leveling is one of the most daunting tasks for new players in PoE, so for this season, Keepers of the Flame, we're going to have a leveling guide for every single class in PoE, as well as videos for select classes and ascendancies. The POBs will be listed below in a Google Docs file. Most of these leveling guides will correspond with an in-game build guide for each class and ascendancy, but the in-game builds will be featured in a separate video so that you can choose how you want to level and then choose how you want to play the game. For now, let's get into it. We are at Merveil in the end of Act 1. Our passive tree looks as such, we are moving towards Ancestral Bond so that we can go a pure totem build. Our items, we're just looking for a scepter with some damage on it, a shield with some sort of damage on it, and then everything else is just going to be defenses and move speed on our boots. Playstyle hasn't changed. We're just going to drop our totem and drop flame wall. Let our totem do most of the work with our flame wall doing extra damage. And then we can use either rolling magma or purifying flame to assist in single target damage. Failed down. On to Act 2. Hello, Dominus. We are at the end of Act 3 here. We are currently running with Ancestral Bond, Primal Manifestation, as well as Explosive Impact and Fire Mastery for 90% conversion on our Flame Totem. We're moving towards Divine Judgment, which is a nice boost in damage, and then we'll be moving towards Holy Fire for this 100% increased damage with hits against ignited enemies, which is a tremendous damage boost to our character. Now, that being said, at the end of Act 3 here, we're probably at the lowest relative DPS that we could be for our character because we're missing two very important damage nodes. So these fights take a little bit longer. We're going to be self-casting Flammability, self-casting Flame Wall, and dropping Totems. And so your rotation just becomes drop a couple Totems, and then drop a Flame Wall, and then run around. And then any target that is tanky, you're just going to hit with a Flammability Curse. At the end of Act 3 here, we will go and get our Ascendancy node, and that will be another big boost to our damage. And so we'll see a pretty significant spike in our overall power moving into Act 4.
Have you ever seen the true face of God, exile? Die. The touch of God.
Not the slams. Just a reminder, we are running Clarity and Herald of Purity. And on our Holy Flame Totem, it is Elemental Focus and Controlled Destruction. But we're soon going to drop Elemental Focus because we are going to need to ignite to trigger our 100% increased damage from hits taken against ignited targets. On to Act 4. Act 4, definitely the best acts for us. A whole lot of power creep in Act 4. See you soon. Oh, Zorro.
Claw your way to
Always, 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 as soon as you kill a Zorro, rush to the altar and get your Ascendancy before the game disconnects you. Now, again, we are going to be Ascendancing Hierophant and going straight for Pursuit of Faith, giving us 50% more damage just by virtue of having a third totem available. This will also increase our totem duration and placement speed, which is a huge quality of life. All very, very strong for us. Let's go ahead and start rolling through Act 4. Aqueduct is always a great place to look at our mapping. And so mapping is pretty straightforward. You're just going to drop totems. You can drop a firewall totem on any big group for an extra burst of damage, but you're basically just going to drop totems. And totems are pretty mana heavy, so we are going to be using a mana flask for quite a while. Clarity will help with general mana preservation, but most of our mana is going to come from our mana flask. You can see clear is pretty straightforward. Just drop totems, move, loot anything important. Make sure you have a good loot filter set up for whatever it is that you need. Filter Blade is a great option for loot filters. Placement speed that we get from the Hierophant Ascendancy is huge for mobility. It keeps us moving so much faster through the map. And then we're still using Shield Charge and Frost Blink or Flame Dash for our secondary mobility. On a side note, it helps probably to have better than a level 12 mana flask, but we really haven't been paying attention. Build just kind of flies through the campaign fairly easily. Act 4. We are now at the end of Act 4. Act 4 has been a huge boost to our damage for the build. We did acquire Pursuit of Faith. We made it over to Divine Judgment. We have Primal Manifestation, Fire Mastery, Ancestral Bond, and so everything in the build is starting to come together. We are moving towards Sovereignty because we did add Anger and Herald of Purity in. Unfortunately, we can no longer run Clarity, so we are fully reliant on our Mana Potion, but Clarity was really not keeping up with things as it's set, and so this is definitely a better way for us to go. For our links, we are now running Holy Flame Totem with LE Focus, Control Destruction, and added fire damage. We did pick up an Honor Home Helm. If you can get one ASAP. This is a huge boost to your damage and quality of life for reduced mana cost of skills. You do want to have a Rustic Sash with global physical damage on it, and you want to start looking for cast speed on your rings and your amulet. Those are all huge boosts to your damage. The rest of your slots are just for life and resistances and armor ES. We are running an armor ES build because we are relying on armor and energy shield mastery, which is a huge bonus to our defenses, both in ES and armor, by having doubling the effects of our body armor. And you also want to look for a really solid body armor with a lot of armor and a lot of ES. Those are going to be very, very beneficial to your defenses. Playstyle is roughly the same. You're just going to run around, drop totems, and use your mana flask to keep up with the mana for dropping those totems. And then versus bosses, again, you'll drop totems, drop a flame wall, and usually everything is dead way before you can do anything else.
You are imprisoned by your own vanity, Saffron.
It is probably getting to the point where we're going to want our next mana flask to be an enduring mana flask, which will help to sustain our uptime on our mana regen. Getting an enduring mana flask too early isn't as beneficial because the flasks themselves are not as effective. But this Hallowed Mana Flask, for example, at level 42 would be a good time to start switching over to an Enduring Mana Flask, because the penalty to the total mana recovered is not as painful whenever the flask itself is very, very high total mana recovered. Movement is still Shield Charge and Cross Blink. You could use Flame Dash as an alternative, but make sure you do have both a Blink and a Shield Charge for movement. You'll need the Blink in order to move successfully out of boss mechanics. And don't forget, before you encounter a boss, if you are short on flasks from running around and doing things, you can portal back to town very quickly. Come on out, Malachi. Nope. Nope. No disconnects. Goodbye, Malachi. Goodbye, Piety. Goodbye, Malachi. For any totem builds, positioning is really important. Our totems now have a reasonable duration, so you want to position them in places where you're not going to have to recast them frequently. And so, like right here, we're going to position our totems near this part, because he's going to have to go there to recharge and go through his immune phase, and that'll allow that to kill that. And then you can recast your totems over here. And for the same purpose. Act 4 completed. Let's go get Kitava. We are now at the end of Act 5, facing Kitava. No changes to our gear or skills. We did move over and take Mental Rapidity after finishing off Sovereignty there. We are still dropping Totems and Firewalls as our main source of damage, and using Flammability Curse. As you can see, the damage versus single target is very solid. A lot of that thanks to Honor Home Helm right now, which is essentially a helm that is giving us a 5 link very early on, which is very nice to have. We did stop using Herald of Purity temporarily so that we could run Clarity just for better quality of life. And we did add a Lightning Golem to the build as a source of cast speed and additional mana regeneration to work with Clarity. Now, if you really want to min-max it, you can always summon your totems and then immediately turn on your Herald of Purity. But that's a little try-hard for campaign life. And we already melt everything with incredible speed. And we're going to take a hit to our elemental resistances, but they're all pretty solid as is, so you won't need to do too much. We do a Lyra with Holy Dominion, which ends up being a tremendous amount of free elemental resistances to help us keep our resistance capped. Go get some Act 6. Alright, we are at the end of Act 6. the build is just flying. We are now running Clarity, Herald of Purity, and Anger again because we did spec into Sovereignty. We are moving towards Heart of Flame and Breath of Flame, so we gain access to 100% increased damage with hits against ignited enemies. Once we do that, that will also open up the support gem Immolate, which is a tremendous amount of extra damage as well as an option for us. But for right now, the damage is very good. Very, very pleased with the damage. Super simple playstyle. Just drop totems and a firewall if you need one, and curse any target that is alive for longer than a second. Gear has not changed at all. In fact, at some point we need to upgrade our level 12 scepter and our level 9 shield. We are running Armor ES again as our primary defense, which is a tremendous defensive layer. And we'll be moving down towards more defensive layers as we continue to level once we get Heart of Flame, Breath of Flame. Sir Brian King, it was nice knowing you. Act 7. Act 7 is also going to be a significant power spike for us because we will get our next Ascendancy node, and our next Ascendancy node is going to be Ritual of Awakening, which will give us mana recovery, again allow us to pull away from Clarity a little bit, continue relying on our totem for that, and also give us more defensive layers through totems, regenerate life. We are now at the end of Act 7, and the build is coming together very, very well. We obviously did pick up Ritual of Awakening, which is a huge damage increase for us, as well as great quality of life. Next would be Arcane Blessing. On our passive tree itself, we have moved up and taken Heart of Flame and Fire Mastery for critical strikes do not ignite. We have about a 25% chance to crit, and we're attacking like 20 times a second, so I don't think we're going to have any issues keeping Ignite up, which means 100% increased damage. We did come down and take Deep Thoughts and Mana Mastery because our Clarity is leveling up higher, which is causing it to require more reservation, giving us access to all of our auras again. I think towards the end of the build, we would move Clarity over to Life Reservation with Life Reservation Efficiency here, and add in a third aura to the build. We did take Mental Rapidity and Cruel Preparation as well, and are moving down towards Arcane Sanctuary for the spell damage bonus, as well as the additional spell block that we get out of that. Our links are still the same in our Honor Home Helm. All of our other items have remained the same as well. We are using one curse and Flame Wall and just melting everything. Tremendous single target damage, tremendous clear. Probably one of the strongest overall leveling builds as you get through the acts that I've played so far. Very mediocre gear. We do have a Fire Spell Skill Gem Shield. We have a Scepter with some spell damage and some fire spell damage, cast speed rings, a cast speed neck, generic body armor, gloves, and boots, as well as a rustic sash, because we are a fizz damage conversion build. I think once you get into late game mapping, the build would run something like a headhunter to take advantage of the fizz conversion that Holy Flame Totem does have built into it. For now, Act 8. All right, we are coming up on the end of Act 8 with our Hierophant build here. Again, we have moved up to Heart of Flame, taken Fire Mastery, moved down to Arcane Sanctuary, as well as Mental Rapidity and Caster Mastery, and Deep Thoughts for Mana Reservation. So this is a good position for us to be in. Single target damage is absolutely phenomenal. Clear is absolutely phenomenal. Playstyle is fairly simple. You just drop totems, keep a Flame Wall down if you want a little bit of extra damage. Flame Wall is not a tremendous chunk of your damage. Your curse is going to be very important, however. Make sure your targets are cursed at all times if they are going to live for longer than a second. And as you can see, everything just melts. Moving on to the blood aqueducts. We do not have any corrupted blood immunity set in the build, so be careful with corrupted blood. But the playstyle is for mapping. You drop totems, you shield charge. You drop totems, you shield charge, and everything will just die. Your totem placement is massively hasted with the Hierophant nodes. You can drop them very, very quickly. We now have enough mana recovery to seamlessly drop them without any kind of a issue with our mana. We're no longer really utilizing our mana flask at all. And so from a leveling content or moving through maps content, you just blaze through everything and everything dies. Including the internet connection here. I've looked at the transfigured version of Holy Flame Totem, and it does approximately 25% more single target damage, and it has a little bit longer range on it, but losing the 2 extra projectiles that come off of the side, I don't think is worth it in a mapping situation, but in a true in-game situation, it might be something to look into. For now, Act 10. Act 9. Alright, we are very quickly at the end of Act 9. We've taken Divine Shield and Sanctity to help bolster our defenses. Everything else on our tree is exactly the way it was, and our items are exactly the way they have been. The only difference that we did do is we moved Clarity over to Arrogance, and we added Determination to our build, giving us a solid 85% damage reduction and 12k armor whenever we have our Granite Flask active. And so very solid layer of defenses with the Divine Shield giving us a tremendous amount of ES recovery and regen from Sanctity and regen from our Ascendancy node giving us a tremendous amount of life recovery. Down, down, down goes Dodri. Our resistances are mostly okay. Chaos obviously is non-existent, and we're close to cap on lightning, capped cold, and fire. But chaos damage is still a big problem because we do have a much lower amount of life than a pure life build would have. So be extra careful whenever you're taking chaos damage. Thankfully, the region that we have counters most chaos dots. Aligaro, Phazon, Cheater. Still running the same 4-link on our Holy Flame Totem, which is added fire damage, controlled destruction, and multiple totems. Multiple totems becomes really beneficial once you get your second Ascendancy, because the additional 5% more damage per totem makes the penalty to the totems individually much less. And Trinity, go big boy. All you do is keep your curse up on Trinity, keep your flame wall down. Totem duration is very, very strong at this point. Last Kitava coming soon. All right, we are at the end. Kitava, no real changes to our build. We have been slowly moving towards more defenses. We picked up Sanctity. We picked up Divine Shield. Everything else is as is. Our equipment is unchanged. And our damage is still solid. Cosmos, thank you for the follow, sir. All in all, for this leveling guide, I mean, it's 9 out of 10. Holy Flame Totems was super impressive. And we are all finished. And done. As always, as soon as we're finished with the campaign, we fire up a T16 map just to see how poorly our build does in leveling gear at level 64 on a T16 Jungle Valley. This is not an example of how good the build is. This is just to see how it functions in mapping. Probably don't want to do this Delirious. Playstyle is pretty straightforward. You're just going to be dropping totems, letting totems do all the work. As you can see, the totems seem to melt everything fairly well. Now let's take a look at the POB for our Templar. We have this broken down into Act 1 through 10 on where you need to be. Act 1 is going to show you where you need to be on your passive tree here, your skills listed here, and then the items. These are just the taglines that you're looking for. These are the affixes that you're going to want on each piece of gear. You want a scepter that has some spell damage, fire damage to spells, cast speed, level of fire skill gems. Those are the affixes you're looking for. On your shield, you're looking for spell damage, and fire spell skill gems. We want to try to get an Honor Home helmet as soon as possible as well, because it's just a huge boost to damage and quality of life. We're going to want attributes on our amulet, as well as spell damage and cast speed. We're going to want rings with cast speed on them as well. Our other equipment slots are just going to be generic armor, ES gear, and belts with resistances and life on them. So nothing complex there. For our skills, Act 1, we're going to be rolling Magma or Purifying Flame with a Holy Flame Totem and Flame Wall and Clarity. Act 2, we get to shift strictly over to Holy Flame only with Clarity and Herald of Purity. Act 3, we get Holy Flame Totem with Flame Wall. We add Clarity and Anger, as well as Elemental Weakness. Act 4, we add in Summon Lightning Golem for additional mana regeneration. Act 5, we're going to keep everything the same as it is. Act 6, we're going to add Herald of Purity back in by putting Clarity on Arrogance. And this is going to remain mostly unchanged for the rest of the game as we're leveling our character through the campaign. Now, for our passive tree, you'll just follow the passive tree as it goes from Act to Act. Act 1 takes us over to Light of Divinity. Act 2 takes us over to Ancestral Bond. Act 3 takes us over to Fire Mastery, as well as Primal Manifestation. Act 4 brings us down to pick up Divine Judgment. Act 5 takes us over to Elemental Overload and Mental Rapidity. Act 6 gives us sovereignty, as well as some additional crit chance for our totems for triggering elemental overload more frequently. Act 7 is going to pull up here and pick up Heart of Flame, as well as Fire Mastery. Make sure that you do unspec out of Elemental Focus once you take Fire Mastery, because we do want to be able to apply an Ignite. Act 8, we're going to start picking up defensive nodes via Divine Shield, as well as Sanctity. Act 9, we're going to continue that by going over to Sanctum of Thought. And then Act 10, we're going to continue that again by taking more defensive nodes via Shield Mastery, Arcane Guarding, and Devotion. Now, we will have a end-game guide for this build as well, and other spell totem builds as they become available. But for now, this will get you all the way through into mapping, and the base for this build will take you all the way to T16 mapping as your gear improves. If you have any questions over anything, please feel free to come by Twitch and ask. I'm happy to help. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please like, subscribe, drop a comment down below. As a reminder, I'm happy to offer one-on-one support for any of my builds. Just come by Twitch during any live stream time. Thank you very much. Peace.